All right. Let's go ahead and jump in, and I will just have to catch up with anybody that I missed a little bit later. All right. Okay, let's just show of hands. We'll throw a one in the chat. Who feels an obligation to be active on social media? Yep, me too. Me too. And we're going to talk about the why of that today. And we're going to talk about what keeps us from being as active as we know we need to be on social media. So let me pull up my presentation here for us, and we're going to jump in. Got this. Let me present full screen. And I'm going to share my screen. Holler at me if once I say I shared it. If you can't see it, let's go here. Share. I'm actually, so today what we're talking about is the real estate agent's content problem. So we just acknowledged that we all feel compelled to be active on social media. I don't think it's any secret that it needs to be a part of our ongoing business growth strategy. So who can relate to this activity? You sit down, you know you should post today. You're determined to post today. You said to yourself, I'm going to post today. You open your chosen social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, but then you end up staring at a blank box. It's
Well,
just
with
your
the
blank
protocol packs,
screen.
you can
It's
delete all
blinking at
account
you.
of PTA about
And you don't know, like, what am I going to say? All right, okay. You scroll a little bit, you see what other people are posting, you start to type something, you delete it, and then you close the app and you move on with your day. Does anybody relate to that? So I want you to put this in the chat. What are the obstacles that prevent you from posting on social media? Okay, you know you should be posting on social media. You're determined you want to post on social media, but for some reason you're not. So throw some thoughts in the chat as to why you do not end up posting on social media. Okay, cool. I see that. Time and automation. What do I talk about? Yep, not wanting to sound like all the realtors on social media, but why, Barbie? They sound great. No, I'm with you. Valuable content, I think. And okay, Angel, no way is that true. There's no way you think you look and sound stupid on video, but I will tell you that is a common objection. In fact, when I first got started on video, I just felt like, I don't know, goofy. What does anybody want to watch me for? I will tell you what helped me overcome that. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, is that I started to get business from doing it. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. But these are very common objections. Time, what should I talk about? What can I provide of value? Feeling like what I have to share might sound like everybody else. You know, you are not alone for sure. This is definitely things that other folks feel, myself included. So let me real quick. I'm sorry. Again, I'm going to send this link to a couple people. I just got some momentum going here. And okay, got it to her. All right. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to let you off the hook a little bit. Often people feel like they are lacking motivation. That's not true. It's not a motivation problem. It is a system problem. And I'm not trying to put you to sleep. I know systems can be like, you know, boring, but it's what's going to set you free. Okay. But before we go any further, what I want to do is I want to set the stakes. Okay. Why do we need to be active on social media? I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, I knew for a long time that I should be active on social media, but I had Zero clue what that looked like. I knew that I needed to, post some, but like for what purpose? All right, so here are the stakes. And this is the next section here is statistics, okay, but it's brief. So bear with me because I know that we're all a bunch of high I personalities that are like, when it comes to statistics, but just bear with me. I promise you it will be worth it. Okay. 71% of buyers and 81% of sellers contact one agent. Okay. Who here has read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent? Okay. I'll start us off. Give us a one in the chat if you've read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent.
71% of buyers contact one real estate agent.
And the reason I ask that is that statistic or that fact, the idea that the majority of buyers and sellers talk to one agent probably sounds familiar. I remember reading that in The Millionaire Real Estate Agent forever and ever ago. And that's followed up by what that means is you got to be top of mind for that buyer or seller when they make that decision. And again, you don't know when that'll be. So when you need to be top of mind all the time. We used to have to work a lot harder to stay top of mind. Social media becomes a very easy component of staying top of mind. Okay, next statistics. Switch gears in your brain a little bit from buyers and sellers to now agents. 77% of real estate agents use social media. Okay, so the vast majority of agents are using social media, but only 47% of those using social media say that they see leads from that effort, from being active on social media. That's a huge gap. I just want to unpack this a little bit for us because it's not saying that 77%, 47%, so that's a 30% gap. No, those are two separate statistics. Of the 100% using social media, only 47% say it generates leads. And it almost always comes down to strategy. And I'm going to break away from sort of, I do, if you've been on my trainings, I try to mix things where I'm kind of reading a little bit of a guideline here so I don't get too far off track, but at the same time I like to give you my personal experience and insights. The agents I work with, the vast majority don't understand what it means to have a social media strategy. And I'm not being critical because I was right there with you. No one ever teaches us that. And it's not, so let's go back to where we were talking about the things that are obstacles to us posting on social media, right? We talked about not like, we didn't all say the same thing. For some, it was time. For some, it was what to say. For some, it was, I don't feel comfortable on camera. But it wasn't the same thing. So we're not solving one problem. We're actually solving eight problems. And I'm going to break that down for you. The social media success, what it actually requires are these eight things. And it's going to feel like a lot because it is a lot, but it is not as a lot as it feels. And I bet that is a sentence that will go down in history as one of the clearest, most well articulated thoughts of all time. You need a content strategy, which is like kind of knowing who you are, what you stand for, and who you're talking to. That addresses the idea of sounding like other people. You want to have a good content mix, the right types of posts doing the right jobs in the right ratio, a capture system, collecting raw material before it disappears. Because the good stuff happens in the field and not at your desk. And had to send another link. This is a really fun experiment. You need a creation process that turns your raw material into finished posts that sound like you. You also need to understand what's going on the platforms. What works on Facebook is not what works on Instagram, and LinkedIn, completely different. You need a publishing cadence, so something consistent enough to build familiarity and sustainable enough to maintain. And here we're going to hashtag, no, pause, whatever, timeout. Pause game, as my kids used to say. We're going to pause here because we're going to talk about what does consistency mean versus sustainable, right? And really, I guess those two are related. The research says that if you post 3 to 5 times a week over months, you're going to be more successful than someone who has a burst of activity for 2 weeks and then disappears. See, that is exactly it's just like going on a diet, okay? I know we can all relate to this idea that we start off our diet and we're all filled with motivation. I'm not eating that garbage. Ugh, blah. I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna run today. My favorite comedian is Jim Gaffigan, and he does this hilarious bit about exercise and diet where he's like, day one, you're like, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna exercise every day. And then on day two, you wake up and you're like, well, not every day. So, anyways, that's how it works with social media at times. We get all motivated and we're like, I'm going to do it. But that's where systems and processes are greater than motivation. You got to have your systems in place. So, you need a scheduling system. Now, this is the other thing that has been for me a real unlock that has relieved some of the pressure. And it sort of ties into this idea that when we have motivation, when you take advantage of it, I do a lot of batching of content creation and then scheduling. And that saves me from on Monday, I'm all motivated, and on Tuesday, I don't feel like doing it. Well, I already did it on Sunday when I scheduled everything out. And to kind of bring this home further, consistency over time. You got to be consistent. The algorithm rewards predictable creators with compounding reach. Think of it as like trust. And I know that sounds silly because an algorithm is a calculation effectively, but the algorithm, the platforms want to know that they can trust you before they promote you. They want to know that if you're going to post something on, you know, Monday or Tuesday, basically around this time. It doesn't have to be at the exact same time, but once the algorithm sees this guy provides or this gal provides consistent, valuable information, then boom, they're going to feed that. They're going to feed your information more to your audience. That sounds like a lot, right? It's hard. And it sounds hard and it feels hard. It is hard, but here's the good news. With the right system in place, it's not nearly as hard as it sounds. And I'm going to start today by telling you one like huge secret. You don't create content, you capture it. Okay. Now, I'm not trying to like talk semantics. I'm not trying to come up with a cute saying that's like, don't love your work, work your love. No, I'm saying you don't create content, you capture it. Gary Vaynerchuk, he might be a little bit of a crazy person as far as telling you to post 32,000 times a day, but he has a number of great frameworks. And one of his really great frameworks is document, don't create. You already have everything that you need, okay? Everything happening around you every single day. That's what you need to create content. You just don't have a system to collect it before it disappears. I'm going to give you 4 buckets that are all generating content right now, whether you're using them or not. I mean, this is really good. I love it when I'm saying, this is really what I'm about to give you. It's really good, but it really is. Like it's almost freeing when you say to yourself, oh, wait, I don't have to create a bunch of content. I've already got it. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about 4 buckets, and then I've got some resources that I'm going to give you. And actually, Spencer, why don't you go ahead and drop the link to the resource document in the chat so that people can go ahead and access it? But please stay with me. Don't read ahead. Don't do what I would do when I was in school and the teacher would give us something and say, don't look ahead. And I'm like halfway through it. Just bear with me, but I do want to make sure you get the resource document. And if you don't grab it here or you miss it or if you're watching the replay, this is going to be in the email that you received. You actually, I think you probably already received it. Okay, so our first bucket, the transactions. Every deal you're working on is content, and not just the closed deal, it's every stage of it. Just listed gives you a post, price reduction gives you a post, multiple offers tell that story. Under contract on a tough property in a competitive market, that's a great behind the scenes content piece. Buyer walked in and said, "This is the one." That's an emotional moment that people will really connect with. Another thing that people connect with, that offer that you lost and what ended up happening. The house that smelled like cats. All of this stuff is content. Now, I'm not saying you go and say, "Hey, I was working with Larry Smith and, well, that guy's credit." No, of course not. But every transaction has a story. You learn something new every time you go to a neighborhood to price out a house. Did you realize that that park there is one of the only parks in the country that has X or whatever? There's all kinds of interesting stuff that's happening around you during your transactions. And even if it's not terribly interesting, those just listed posts, those under contract posts, those sold, those should not be your only content, but they are perfectly reasonable content to continue to stay top of mind with your audience. The framework I'd like to keep in mind, I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a second. I think. Where's the stop? There it is. Okay. So the framework I like to think about when I'm thinking about staying top of mind with my audience, I think about it as the contrast between two things. All right. Think about trying to dribble a basketball. Okay. Dribbling a basketball requires constant focused effort. If you're not focused on dribbling that basketball, and if you're not constantly applying some degree of force to the basketball, it stops being dribbled. It just bounces away or whatever. Now, contrast that with keeping a balloon in the air. You ever play keep up with your kids or whatever, and you got to tap the balloon? That doesn't require focused effort. It doesn't even require focus, and it doesn't really even require that much effort. You just have to tap the balloon every once in a while. Okay. So that's what I want you to think about. Staying top of mind of people isn't the effort level of dribbling a basketball, it's the effort level of tapping a balloon. So when you list a house or sell a house or put a house under contract, that's a nice little balloon tap. But if that's all people see from you, it just fades into noise. So the first bucket is our transactions. And so it's not just my just listeds, but it's how did we price this home? What interesting facts did we learn about this neighborhood? What is it that what's my framework for pricing a house in the market that exists today? Those are great pieces of content. Or you've got your open house coming up. Don't just say, "Hey, I have the open house," but think about like what are your tactics that you use to draw people into an open house. One of the mistakes I think that we make as real estate professionals is we focus our efforts in marketing and social media on selling the house. Now, don't misread me. We do need to sell the house, but you also need to keep in mind that you're selling your services at the same time. And I'm not saying one at the cost of the other. I'm saying post, "Hey, everyone, join me at this open house." And then another post might be, "I attract people to the open house by putting balloons 50 miles out and in." I don't know. That seems a little excessive, but you know what I'm saying? Like there's more to the story than just I'm having an open house. "Hey, we're under contract." Then you might have an interesting story about negotiation, not necessarily related to that, but it's a great opportunity to say, "Hey, when I negotiate on behalf of my clients, these are some of the tactics that I use to achieve the highest outcome or the best outcome on their behalf." So that's our first bucket, and that's transactions. And before I forget, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And I should also share that obviously, or I don't know if it's obvious, but my intent is that we'll get done with enough time for some question and answer. All right. So that's bucket number one, transactions. Bucket number two, frequently asked questions. Every day, somebody calls you and says, "Hey, Beth, it's Clay. I know I didn't hire you to be my agent, but I have a question my agent can't answer. Can you answer it for me?" And under your breath or in the back of your mind, you think, "Well, maybe you should have hired me as your agent." But beyond that, that question is great content. Someone just asked you something. I bet they're not the only people that are interested in the answer to that question. So if you're stewing over what do I post? Well, what's that last question you got asked? Is now a good time to buy? How long does closing usually take? Should I fix it up or sell as is? That's always an interesting conversation. What's going on with interest rates? What should I do before I list? Now, in the interest of sharing as a community, does anybody have any fun sort of question or frequently asked question they turned into content that drove some engagement? I'd love to see that in the chat. One of the things about this whole frequently asked questions, and really, well, I don't want to jump ahead. I'm going to talk about this being from your perspective. What I don't want you to hear from me ever is this is the exact formula that works for everybody the exact same, because it doesn't. It does not. If someone sells you that, run away. That is not how it works. Your most effective content is going to be the content that can come from only you. And so you want to have your spin on what you're saying. Now, I just want to see if, okay. So then let's talk a little bit about our next bucket. And again, I've got some resources that's going to make this even easier. So bucket number three is be the mayor. Okay. What do I mean by be the mayor? You want to be the person that people think of when they think about whatever it is that is your chosen area of expertise, whether that is a area you farm, a community you live in, or in investor deals or equestrian or whatever your specialty is. So, being the mayor means when something's going on in your chosen area of expertise, be the one that posts. New restaurant opening in your neighborhood, road construction that's impacting commute patterns, school making a major change, development going up on the edge of town, whatever, market stats. So you're running for mayor. You want to be that person that people think of. And this is what I want to clarify. Like if you're thinking, but I don't really work a geographic community, I work with, I don't know what, move up buyers, move up sellers, etc. The examples I am giving you, that's, if you, a lot of us do try to work a geographic area, that these examples work for that. But if your expertise is investors, maybe being the mayor looks like posts that say, I just heard about a new change in the 1031 law. I wonder what, you want them to think of you when they hear that. Something's happening with equestrian inventory in Ocala. If that's your area, you want your posts to drive them to say, I wonder what Clay thinks about that. So that's another area where we can draw content. The next area is authority. This is a proactive. So the other three are somewhat reactive. This is proactive. And what we're doing here is we're talking about what you already know, the thing that is your area of expertise. So who you are is going to drive this authority bucket. One of the things that is important, you want to come across and have the information and you want to be able to establish yourself as a person of authority. For me, that's looked like for the last period of time. I post a lot about AI. And now when people locally are talking about AI, I tend to get tagged or, flagged or asked my thoughts because I've sort of established myself as an authority. And one thing that I learned, early on in this journey is it's not that the person you're following or the people you're leading feel like you know everything. I don't think anyone on this call thinks that I know everything about AI or about content or about whatever. But I know enough of what's of value, hopefully, that you walk away with some level of value. You don't have to know everything, but you probably know more than your audience, and that's what you want to share. So hopefully, and again, I've got a resource that'll reinforce this, but hopefully you feel like you have weeks of content in front of you now. You've got transactions. You've got frequently asked questions. You've got happenings in your town or your area of expertise, and then you have your position of authority. All of those can work together to fill out your content flywheel. So it wasn't a problem that you didn't have anything to say. The problem was you didn't have a system to collect it and turn it into posts. And so that's the capture system piece of the flywheel handled. Now we're going to talk about what a working system looks like. Not every post has the same job. A balanced week will use three types: functional, so listings, price reductions, market updates, closed deals. Those signal that you're active and you're doing business. Don't need to be terribly creative, they just need to exist. Next, behind the scenes, so like a showing, a moment from a negotiation, something real from your week. Those make you human and not a billboard. Usually, the posts people will actually engage with more are these behind the scenes posts. And then you want to establish your expertise, your take on the market, an answer to a common question, something from your authority lane, which then builds your reputation over time. So these three types, rotating 3 to 5 times a week consistently. Now, I am not here to dictate to you what cadence you should be posting because that it's kind of like ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different opinions. I will tell you the one thing more important than anything else: consistency. Be consistent. I feel like bare minimum, you should be posting 3 times a week, every week. But even one quality post every week is better than nothing as long as it's consistent. The next thing that we miss as real estate agents, because no one's really ever told us this, is that every post should have a goal. And what that means is, what do I want someone to do after they read this? Call me, comment below, DM me if you're thinking about selling, click the link. When you're posting, it's almost like you're giving someone directions. So when you're giving them directions, you got to tell them what to do next. So it's almost like, let's say you need somebody to turn right at the intersection of Pine and Main. And you tell them, okay, when you get to Pine and Main, well, how are they supposed to know to turn right? You didn't tell them. That's like having a post that doesn't say, hey, follow me for more information like this. DM me for my, and then share with them a resource that you have. Each of your posts, think about what's my goal with this post and then come up with a CTA to match it. The other thing I would say is, use scheduling. I'm not saying that, in your inspired post, and I personally, my personal belief is that you should have your scheduled posts, and then when you're inspired, post something. Because usually when you're inspired, that's going to be something that resonates with your audience. But I highly recommend and believe in scheduling. So I'm very active on Facebook, and it has a native scheduler for your personal Facebook. Or separately, if you're posting on your Facebook business or your LinkedIn or Instagram, you can schedule those using tools like Go High Level or Buffer. There's a bunch of them. They're worth it to have the peace of mind that create a bunch of content in a batch and scheduled it. Highly recommend scheduling. And 3 to 5 posts a week. I know I've already held for months. That's the standard. Again, keep it at three. Three is real, four is better, five is solid. But the research is clear. Consistent over months beats flashes of activity. Algorithm wants you to be there predictably. All right. So let's talk about AI because AI is a huge leverage point here. Shocker, right? That we would actually be talking about AI in one of these trainings. But yes, AI will set you free when it comes to this prison of content creation. Even with buckets full of material, a mix to follow, scheduling tool ready, the actual writing still takes time. And going from rough idea to a finished post that sounds like you, that works across platforms, that has a real CTA, that's where all your time goes. And this is a big, important piece of our flywheel. AI is a content finishing machine, not a content idea machine. It can help you with ideas, but you have to bring the substance while AI handles the production. So I'm about to handle three of the eight, on our little flywheel, three of the eight things here. All right. So I'm going to switch my screen over to, and we're going to let's use Claude. You guys, this is just for my own curiosity. Throw in the chat, what's your preferred AI choice? What are you using these days? Let's throw that in the chat. So we've got Claude, Gemini, Chat, Claude, Chat, Gemini, and Claude. Vicky, I'm with you, girl. Chat GPT, Claude, Claude. Okay, I'm this. Nobody asked. This isn't a part of the workshop. I am just going to throw out there. Don't sweat the model terribly. There are differences. There are nuances that can, offer different benefits to you. But before you start worrying about that, just whatever you're comfortable with, just go deep on that. Try not to go narrow on all of them, but kind of go deep on the ones you're using. I'm going to use Claude today. Did I pull it up? Okay, here we go. Now, the first resource we have is this weekly content starter kit. And Spencer, would you mind throwing that link into the chat? It's also in the resource document you received. And this is real simple. At the top, it's just encouraging you to throw in your city or area, your specialty or niche, and then one thing that happened to you. What we're going to do is I'm going to copy this prompt, just straight up old school, highlight, Control C, Control V. And I'm a real estate agent and here is where we're going to get some participation from the audience. Somebody tell me where you work and in what niche you serve. I'm going to be like your dad. I'm not moving this car till somebody participates. Okay. Paso Robles, California. Ranches. That sounds interesting. Okay. Now, Angel, you're going to be on the spot a little bit further. Anything interesting happened to you this week? Any showings, any funny listing things, any funny things in your business or life that we can say, here's one real thing that happened this week?
I guess I could just tell you. I get
Yeah,
to go
please.
I get to go do a lot of back rows, a lot of behind the gates, places that people would never get to see, and so that's kind of what I want to focus on, the area and kind of the history and interesting properties that, people wouldn't normally not get to see because they can't get back there.
All right. So this is a prompt chain. And what that means is we start with our first prompt, get the results, and then move to our second prompt, and then finally our third prompt. The results of our first prompt are 5. Okay. What it's doing is something that I have mine programmed. So like I tell mine, hey, don't do that. It's making up things. The 200-acre place drove 1.8 miles. It's trying to work off what we said. Now it says, but it does have a couple of, I think, interesting hooks. So we've got everyone asks what a ranch is worth. You can't answer that from the road. Or the prettiest part of most of the properties is the part you'll never see on Zillow. So the next stage of our prompt chain is to take this idea and turn this into a post. So which of these, Angel, would you like to move forward with here?
Probably like the prettiest part of most of these properties you'll never see on Zillow.
I like that one too. So we're going to say take idea number 5. And that's it. You just tell it. And by the way, you could go back if you like all of them and have it do all of them. Like there's no like, well, you only get one. That's the beauty of AI. And again, if this like what this would I would hope help you with is to say, okay, this gives me an idea of saying, so for example, it says here the prettiest part of most of the properties is the part you'll never see on Zillow. I walked a ranch this week where the listing photos stopped at the gate. Nice house, sure, but the photos missed the creek running through the back 40, the old oak grove Where what I would expect, Angel, is you might take that and narrate this in your own voice of something you experienced. Now, this is formatted. What I want to point out, this is formatted to be a Facebook post, where it says it, and write the full Facebook post. Our next prompt would convert that to Instagram. And then I'm going to do this one more time so we can see another example.
Would you save these as like a skills in Claude?
In Claude, yeah, and I guess in chat too. I'm one of my projects for the coming week is to start messing with skills in Chat GPT because I'm not as familiar. But yes, if this was giving me results that I was happy with, then I would say, okay, now turn this into a skill.
Mhm.
And that'll be a whole nother conversation, but its skills are a beautiful thing. And in fact, I think one of our resources in the group, the Claude training talks about skills. So if you want to jump back in and learn more about skills, you can.
Okay.
So now the Instagram version, the best part of these ranches that you'll never see it on Zillow. I walked a Paso Robles ranch this week and it's the same thing, but it's set differently for Instagram. The idea here is just to help you break out of the what do I talk about? Well, this did happen, but how do I? And the more that you work with it, the better it gets to know your voice. Now, let me say here, Lisa, can you come off mute and let's run through this exercise for Cornelius? And we'll do it in chat just for fun.
Okay, I can try.
There is no try, only do. Okay, here we go. We're going to start with our first prompt, copy, paste. And we said that we're in Cornelius and no spelling will be done on this training. And we said lakefront. And Lisa, was there anything interesting or of note or just anything that happened to you this week that you might want to see if you can turn it into content?
Well, we got to tour a new construction, 5,000 square foot home, mile wide views of Lake Norman. Absolutely phenomenal house that I would really, really like to find a buyer for.
Oh, why did you have to say a word like phenomenal? I'm just playing. All right, perfect. All right, let's see here. So we're going to get 5 social media ideas from that. And anytime that you work with AI, the best way to make it sound like you is to tell it more. And like, I don't want to undermine the value of, like having these quick prompts and whatnot. They're great. But the more that you add to that, the more that's going to sound like you. And so, like, when I write a blog, like, I sit down and I like almost write a paragraph or more of what I want to include in what I'm saying in that blog. The issue isn't that I don't have things that I want to express, it's that I don't have the time to sit down and write long or even really just think through things. And Linda raises a great point. Use the voice button. It's crazy. Like I didn't really buy. Not that I didn't buy into it, but I was just like, I can type. It's fine. But what happens when you use your voice instead of typing is you talk differently than you type. You use more words than you do when you type, and it adds more nuance and value to what you're doing. Okay, so let's take a look at our hooks, and then we'll move to the next prompt. So we've got touring a 5,000 square foot Lake Norman new build this week reminded me how much buyers are prioritizing views over square footage right now, as if 5,000 square feet's not enough. All right. I walked into the living room and literally stopped talking for a second. People think real estate is all contracts and showings, but sometimes you get moments like this. I like that one. Not all lakefront homes are created equal. The gap between average new construction and truly custom homes is getting wider. Lisa, what's your preference here for for the one we want to take a little further?
I liked that one that you did. What did it say? You
Yeah,
changed
it
it.
said,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
People think real estate is
yep,
all about contracts and showings. Yeah.
yep. So we're going to say take idea number 3. People think real estate is all contracts and inspections and chasing signatures, and honestly, some days it is. But then you walk into a house like I did this week, a 5,000 square foot new construction home on Lake Norman with views so wide it almost didn't look real, and it reminds you why people fall in love with homes in the first place. What stuck with me wasn't even the size of the house, it was how the whole place felt. The way the windows framed the water, how quiet it was standing out back, the thought that went into the layout. You could picture someone building an actual life here. That's the part of this job I still enjoy after all these years. What's a house feature that immediately gets your attention when you walk in? That's pretty nice. I like that. And then we're going to do the same thing we did before to convert this to Instagram. So now it's suggesting that you put this as a reel, which is a good idea. But yeah, so there you go. That's a way to take one idea and then make multiple pieces of content. And these prompts obviously are honestly are like you could come back in and say, "Can you give me a LinkedIn post on this topic?" Like I don't know how anybody else feels, but honestly, to a degree, it's getting to a point where, like, I mean, it's still prompting is still helpful, but the AI is getting pretty sophisticated with just knowing that, okay, you tweak little things to make it LinkedIn versus Instagram. So that this right here is in your source guide, the link. I also put this thing together. It's pretty cool. So this is your content starter kit, 365 ideas across 4 categories. And I usually just give PDFs, but I built this and I thought this output was really cool. And it's actually like a hosted app. You should be able to pull it up. I'll throw the link to this in the chat real quick if anybody wants to let me know if you have any issues. And the way this works is here's 100 frequently asked questions on various topics, 100 ideas for that mayor of your market. Share a fun fact about when your town was founded. And what I want to show you that I love, okay, and this is something that I didn't really know was like a thing or existed. See right here, this little box to the right? You just click it and it copies that into your clipboard. And so then you could just run over to your AI of choice and say, I want to choose something a little more interesting. Let's see here. Let's go to, I want to do this. Share a fun fact about when your city or town was founded. Because I don't know any fun facts about when my city or town was founded. I live in Marion County / Ocala, Florida. Give me ideas for social media posts. There you go, Angel. That's an awesome fact. Jesse James hit out in your town. Love it. All right. Most people don't realize Ocala was founded before the Civil War. That's interesting. Ocala comes from a Native American word, big hammock or big village. Ocala used to be known for pineapples. I didn't know that. This is awesome. Cool. So yeah, so that's what I like. That's the purpose of this resource is to take any of these ideas. So it's 100 frequently asked questions, 100 ideas for like the community mayor aspect or whatever, 100 transaction ideas, and then 65 real ideas. So those 2 resources you have in the replay. And let's see here. So I got my prompts. I'm just making sure. All right, so let's go ahead and pause here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can answer any questions that you guys have. There we go. So hit me. Do we have any questions either in the chat or if you have a question, just raise your hand and we can talk through it real quick. I see Linda, versus stories. So this is an area that I'm not an expert in, but I understand that stories are kind of like almost like your own personal reality show where that a lot of kind of behind the scenes stuff can go up there. I would just experiment and see where you're getting different engagement. So your posts would be more like your authority building, etc. And then your stories would be more like, behind the scenes type stuff. Let me jump over here. Matthew, what's up, man? Go ahead and you can unmute and let's talk. You there, Matthew? Well, I must have scared him off. So Vicky says, have I tried Claude Design for generated image for the post that you would post graphic? I haven't used Claude Design for that, but I will tell you that I want hey Matthew, let me check something real quick. I'm sorry. Everybody's hanging on the what I was just about to say. Man, I'm on fire. Try again. Well, let me answer her question, Matthew, then try again. You are now able to unmute yourself. The two resource documents that I shared, both that web page or app page, whatever you want to call it, and then the PDF, as well as the slide deck that I created today, were all done with Claude Design. I love Claude Design. I would still stick with using Gemini or ChatGPT for the images personally. Now, if you have I haven't built images in Claude Design, just like these things, these deliverables or whatever you want to call them. But for me, I just feel like I get the best results out of it. Was Gemini. Now ChatGPT's gotten a lot better. If you're a workspace user and not a ChatGPT user, use Gemini. And if you have both, ChatGPT's been doing a great job for me with images. One thing that I am going to be experimenting with this weekend is the new Gemini AI Studios. Apparently has some really great image generation. Not trying to add to everybody's shiny object or FOMO or whatever, but just I'm going to check those things out. And if they work, I'll put some posts in the group. Now, back to you, sir. Is it still not working? All right. Do you want to throw your question in the chat? All right. So he's going to throw his question in the chat. I am going to, before I lose everyone, I do have an invite for you. So I shared with you a number of things that go into a content strategy. What I showed you today solves some of those problems. But what I'm going to share on June 3rd, I'm giving you my Chief Content Officer agent in this training that I'm going to be doing on June 3rd. It's my first challenge training, and I'm going to teach you what goes into building skills, agents. But the most valuable thing I'm going to give you is my Chief Content Officer skill that writes all of my content. And what it does is it takes those buckets that we talked about and helps you accumulate your content into those buckets. And then in 15 minutes a week, you will be able to generate a week's worth of content. Capture ideas, drafts, adaptations. And so this is a paid training and it's $97, but the early bird that I'm offering to you guys, $87. We're going to do the 2-hour training. We're going to have all of the skills that I'm giving away, but then also I'm going to do a second workshop, an implementation workshop. So we're going to do June 3rd is going to be the training, and then we're going to do the workshop on the following week. And then let me real quick get you guys the link because you'll need that to sign up. Okay, bear with me. Now, Matthew, okay, your question. As an investor, these prompts can be tailored to get similar results, a bit of a different angle from mine. They could definitely be tailored for anyone. Like whatever you do, you can very easily. What I would do is I would take the prompt, I would drop it into my AI, and then I would tell my AI what you're trying to do. I'm an investor. I want this prompt to help me create content. Can you help me turn this into content or a prompt I can use as an investor? So that's how I would do that. Anybody, you can do that very easily. Hopefully that answers that question. Honestly, anytime you ask me a question, there's almost like going to be a part of it that says, go ask your AI. What other questions do you guys have? I mean, I really appreciate everybody joining me for this. I hope that it was valuable. Content is the number two cited reason people join the AI Prompts for Real Estate Professionals group. It is a challenge we all face. Like I said, for me, it became a big unlock for me when I started to see my business grow from it. And I have grown multiple businesses using that. Let's see, the video app editor that I use a couple of video app editors. The one that I use for like just reels where I'm just standing and talking is Captions on my phone. And it's incredible. At the end, when you're done, you can select AI edit. And then it does all of the captions and the cuts and the graphics. It makes it look way more professional. The one that yeah, that's an app on your phone. And then the one that I use for my like YouTube style talking, or not talk, the ones where it's like at my computer and I'm going to put it, I use Tella for that, Tella. I love that app. Similar to Loom with a little more functionality. All right. Well, I think that's it. But if anyone, I'll stick around for another minute or two. Honestly, I'll stick around as long as anybody wants to chat or has any questions. So hit me with it. Was there anything we went over? Anybody want to share anything they've done that has brought them success on social media? I'm definitely open to that input. I think of social media, being active and successful on social media, to be very similar to playing golf. And I don't like playing golf. But what I mean by that is if you've ever tried to learn to play golf, it's like, okay, keep your head down, but not too far down. Keep your elbow in, loosen your body, but not too loose. Keep your knees in, blah, 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 blah. And that's some of that is social media, but AI helps a lot with that. And Angel, yeah, you can, making skills is so easy. You go in and whatever it is you want, skill you want to build, just tell it what you're doing. Great example. Today, as I was preparing for this presentation, I'm building a skill to help me not make so many stupid mistakes when I'm doing these workshops, like sending out the wrong link, like whatever. So all I did was I sat down with it and I said, all right, it's the day of my presentation. I need to have my my actual presentation up. Need to be here, there, and whatever. You go through it once with Claude, or I assume chat's similar, and at the end you say, okay, now turn this into a skill. And then it'll say, okay, boopity boppity boop, here's the skill. And then the next time you go to do that thing, then you just tell it, okay, now it's time for us to do the listing launch skill. Yeah, so like Larry says here, I made a listing launch skill that creates a content calendar for you, identifies 3 to 4 buyer personas, and then creates the content that speaks to them directly. And so that's something that I've done as well. It's something that you can do, or there are folks out there that'll help you with that stuff. So Angel, we can connect if you'd like to talk about that further. And then one of the things that I think will come out of the training on June 3rd is not just that I'm giving you, the skills and the agent, but I think it'll also solidify your understanding of how to build them, because they're very straightforward in terms of how they're built. All right, everybody. I am going to call it a day. This replay will be available. And all right, Matthew, I don't think Manus can dig through Facebook groups. The only thing I found that could do that, and again, I'm open to, I know Larry's on and he's a big AI user. I used to use my Comet browser. So Perplexity has an agentic browser called Comet, and now Claude has an agentic browser, and I think Manus has an agentic browser. And you could tell your browser to get information off of what Facebook pages. I stopped doing it because I had a few people warn me that if Facebook kind of catches wind or realizes that you're doing that you could get booted. So I would just be careful with doing that. Larry says try Gemini and Chrome. Larry, I tried that yesterday. I was in Gemini. I went in Chrome for the first time in a long time to say, okay, I want to see your agentic capabilities. Can you look on this page for something? And it basically said no. Is there something I'm doing wrong? I love Gemini. I want to use Gemini more, but the lack of agentic stuff is kind of holding me back with Gemini. I will have to be more clear. And then let me jump back to Valentina. Yes, we can watch. Yeah, we can watch this. Yes, you will be able to watch the recording. And Valentina was one of the poor folks that I sent the wrong. I mean, I think there are a lot of people I sent the wrong link to. I'm gonna give myself a good talking to after this. But yeah, the replay will be available to all. I'm gonna send a follow-up email in the morning that has your link to the resources, the replay, the whole 9 yards. Oh, Valentina, I gave you the wrong one. You didn't have the wrong one. So, Larry, real quick, would you mind coming off mute? My bad. I'm sorry about that. Just really, I have to tell it to take over the tab. It doesn't like pick up on that. You have to be really direct with it. And okay, all right. But it can it like input things on my screen and all that good stuff, like fill out forms or no? Man, he's shaking his head yes. I say this frequently, guys, or people, folks. What a freaking time to be alive. There's so much cool stuff going on around us every single day. And I'm not trying to talk out of both sides of my mouth where I say like, hey, don't get too distracted about the other things going on around you and focus on one thing, but golly, there's so much cool stuff. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up. I did have somebody just enter the waiting room, so I'm gonna let them in and chat with them briefly to see what's going on, and then we will reconvene again. Training is June 3rd, our first challenge training where I'm gonna dump all kinds of value. I can't wait to see you all there.